Rocket League has always been about speed, mechanics, and quick decision making. But what really separates the pros of today to those in 2015 isn't just mechanics, it's teamwork. Rocket League has definitely come a long way since its release in 2015. Back then, all you would really see is chaotic solo plays and the occasional pass. However, compare that to now, where we have synchronized fakes, infield pre-jumping passing plays, and crazy kickoff strats. The pro scene has definitely evolved far beyond what it used to be. When RLCS Season 1 launched in 2016, the pro scene was a heavy mix of playstyles. Most players relied mainly on solo plays and basic mechanics. The only viable strategy back then was having a goalkeeper stay in net while the other two players attack, which is something you really never see today. And because the game was still relatively new at this point, there were certain pro players who were miles ahead of everybody else in terms of skill and single-handedly carried their teams on their backs. One example of this is Kronovi on the original iBuyPower team, who would just spam solo plays in RLCS and his opponents would simply have no answer for it. Players were mechanical, but team coordination was practically non-existent. Whenever a good pass would happen in RLCS, it was more than likely accidental rather than on purpose. The top teams in the world would essentially play like 3 solo players trying not to bump into each other, since rotation wasn't really seen as an important part of the game back then. However, as players started getting more and more mechanical, lots of players also started getting better defensively. Players would start consistently hitting air dribbles, double taps, and other aerial mechanics. And this opened the gateway for backboard defense, which, believe it or not, also opened the gateway for even more team plays. Defending the backboard meant teams had to coordinate with one another, making sure they're in the correct positions and rotating effectively. Better positioning and rotation meant pro players started to play off of each other, hitting passes and following up on their touches. If somebody was defending the backboard, you could simply hit it around them and pass it to your teammate on the other side of the field, and they would have an easy shot on net. This way of attacking in pro games was literally unsavable in the early days of Rocket League, and this is what would spark the crazy team plays that we're used to seeing today. One team that heavily stood out during this time was Flipside Tactics, consisting of Marky Duda and Cuxer97. These two players started incorporating passes that had never been seen before in the game, and at the time, this was completely revolutionary. For the first time in Rocket League's history, players weren't just hitting the ball, they were actually thinking ahead. And from 2017 onwards, around the beginning of RLCS Season 3, things would start to change extremely fast. Teams started to emphasize structure, rotations became quicker, boost management was better, and while solo plays were still being used, it was not in the same way as before. This time, when a player went for a solo play, one teammate would stay upfield with them ready for a pass rather than going back for the corner boost like before. Players would start to utilize the small boost pads on the field instead of always taking the shiny full boosts. And for all the plat players watching, you can definitely learn a thing or two from that. And with this strategy, teams like Dignitas started to show their complete dominance. They were the best overall team when it came to chemistry. The team consisted of Turbopulsa, K-Dop, and Violent Panda. Every hit of the ball had a purpose. Turbopulsa especially stood out as being one of the best positional players in the entire game. He was always where he needed to be, and that's a big reason he's now a 4-time world champion. This team would go on to storm through RLCS, winning every series with ease. Their opponents simply just could not defend against the passing plays they were doing, and who could blame them? Nobody had ever seen anything like this before in Rocket League. They were so good that they won the RLCS 2 times in a row, winning both RLCS Season 4 and Season 5. It was clear that there was no stopping this team, as they would just steamroll everybody with their relentless attacks. Every series had a game plan, and Dignitas was not only on top in Europe, but on top of the entire world. However, in North America, a new team was rising to the top. Cloud9 shattered everybody's expectations in RLCS Season 6. Gimmick, Squishy, and Torment brought creativity and insane synergy, finally dethroning the previous champions Dignitas in one of the most legendary finals ever played. The final wasn't just a win, it was a statement for North America. North America had proved that they were catching up by embracing team play and not just mechanics. Cloud9 was truly the first team to match the structure and positioning of Dignitas, and they did it on one of the biggest stages in front of thousands of players. And by 2020, if your team wasn't playing as a unit, you simply weren't gonna win. This era of Rocket League was defined by systems, and BDS was the perfect example. Their rotational discipline and constant pressure made them almost unbeatable. They didn't just rely on solo plays, instead they slowly chipped away at their opponent's defense over and over again until they had no boost or even motivation to continue playing the game. Playing against BDS was an absolute nightmare for every team during this time. It felt like you were constantly playing on zero boost since they were so good at starving enemy players until they were completely restricted. This team, consisting of Monkey Moon, Extra, and Mark by 8, was arguably one of the most dominant teams in the history of the game. They were the first team that didn't have a clear best player. It was no longer a one-man show. They were able to capitalize on every little mistake and literally suffocate their opponents. BDS inspired many teams to adopt their playstyle, such as Energy, which had players such as Justin, Squishy, and Garrett G. Every team that learned from BDS became an unstoppable powerhouse that stomped everybody they played against, and it was all thanks to the playstyle that they created. By this point, players were so extremely mechanical that they could do anything they wanted with the ball. This allowed for much more creativity for team plays, and we began seeing stuff like this that happened regularly in the pro scene.
Down, expertly timed from Extra. Drops down.
What? Fuck! Whoa! Show me a better pass! You're not gonna find one!
Take it in! BDS are looking at the Stockholm Major!
Eventually, every team was playing like this. Moist Esports, G2, Gen G, and so many more teams started studying this playstyle. Moist Esports was very unique in the way they played. Everything was so chaotic and fast that they always managed to confuse their opponents. Every player on the team had a strong point. Vatira had insane speed, Rise had perfect positioning, and Joyo had debatably the best mechanics in the entire game. This is a dangerous combination for any team, and their players spoke for themselves. And fast forward to today, in 2025, the meta has evolved even more. Passing plays are no longer a thing of rarity. Instead, they're completely expected. Players are much more solid defensively, meaning simple stuff like infield passes doesn't work anymore. In fact, they're intercepted and shut down almost immediately. Instead, we now have players resorting to mid-air fakes, demo plays, and crazy kickoff strats. Rocket League team play in 2025 is truly reaching its peak. If you watch RLCS now, you'll see a mind game every 5 seconds. This game isn't just mechanical anymore, it's a game of pure intelligence. Fakes aren't accidental anymore, they're actually on purpose. Kickoff strategies such as the Spanish kickoff are very common to see in high-level lobbies now, and even some RLCS teams have recently started designing their own kickoff strategies. The team that in my opinion has the best overall chemistry in today's pro scene is Vitality. Their mind games are orchestrated in such a way that you literally cannot predict them. You can have 5 guesses at what they're gonna do and you're still probably not gonna get it right. The kind of stuff they do is at such a high level that most players simply don't see it. The best players in the world like Zen will fake rotations just to pull opponents out of their position. And the smallest things like that eventually led to insane team plays like this.
She's clear. He has Reynolds down in front. He sees Arsenal in the wing. He's got some in the back. What is this pass to Reynolds? Back to Arsenal.
Oh my goodness!
Unbelievable passing from Space Station Gaming. They picked him apart.
Teams now practice kickoffs, fake cheat plays, demo plays, and so much more that we don't even know about. Unlike the previous BDS era of 2020, every team now has a different playstyle. Every team has different strong points that they practice more than any other team. And this is what makes the RLCS so fun and suspenseful to watch, because you really never know what's gonna happen next. So if you enjoyed watching the evolution of team play in Rocket League, then make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this.